Okay, except their version. Now this sounds like, oh, they're just trying to be woke.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, their version was played by women and non-binary actors,
Wonderful.
but all women.
Yeah,
Okay?
yeah. Okay.
And you say, well, why are they doing that? What's the point of that? Here's why. When you see guys being violent, you say, oh, they're just guys being violent.
Right.
You see a woman threatening to slit someone's throat. Our acculturalization says that's especially violent. Because women don't go running around threatening each other with knives and swords, and it's not a thing in our culture and in our literature. When you see women doing it, it brought the violence to a whole other level.
So why does switching who carries a blade change the felt sharpness of the scene? And what does that reveal about how reality itself depends on the frame of the observer? We think intensity belongs to the act itself, like mass belongs to a rock. Yet even energy isn't absolute. Kinetic energy depends on your motion. Stand still with a baseball and it's harmless. Meet it at 90 miles an hour and it's an impact. Our minds work the same way. We walk around with priors, expectations about who does what, and the sensation of force we feel in a scene is partly the collision between expectation and evidence. Neuroscience models the brain as a prediction engine. What grabs your attention is the prediction error, and the brain weights that error by its estimated precision. Change the performer, and you're not just changing casting, you're changing the probability distribution in the audience's head. That amplifies the error signal, recruiting different networks and shifting moral appraisal faster than the dialogue can. In signal processing terms, your mind runs a matched filter for what people like this tend to do. When the waveform doesn't match, the residuals spike. And the paradox is that the act is the same, but the measured quantity is not. Measured by whom? By an observer with priors. That's already physics. At small scales, reality itself obeys this logic. In quantum experiments, you don't ask, what is the electron doing? In the abstract, you ask, what observable did I arrange to measure? Set up a double slit with no path information, and you get interference. Behavior like a wave. Place detectors to tag which slit was used, and the interference vanishes. Behavior like a particle. It's the same electron, same source, different context. The apparatus isn't a passive window, it's part of the question. Decoherence makes that precise. The environment picks a basis, defines which distinctions become stable facts, and the rest fades into unreportable superpositions. Complementary descriptions can't be seen at once, not because the electron is shy, but because knowing one aspect destroys the conditions for the other to exist. Change the measurement, change what is real enough to count as an outcome. That doesn't mean anything goes. It means outcomes are relational, stabilized by the interaction. So when a familiar act is performed by an unexpected body, we haven't just changed the packaging, we've changed the observable our social instruments are prepared to register, and the universe also keeps a record of our expectations, and occasionally shreds them. For decades, physicists assumed mirror symmetry in the laws of nature. Flip left and right, and processes should look the same. Then came an experiment with cobalt-60 nuclei cooled near absolute zero, and the beta particles flew preferentially in one direction relative to spin. The mirror lied. The weak force has a handedness. That discovery didn't make nature woke. It revealed that our prior was too generous. Hidden asymmetries were doing structural work. Without violations of certain symmetries, specifically charge parity symmetry, the early cosmos would have annihilated matter and antimatter in equal measure, leaving behind a sterile fog of photons. That small tilt in the rules, that failure to balance perfectly, is why atoms, stars, and your breath exist. Noether's theorem tells us that continuous symmetries and conservation laws walk hand in hand. When such a symmetry is only approximate or explicitly broken, the corresponding conservation law need not hold exactly, and the quantity it protects can drift. The meaning is this: symmetry feels fair, but asymmetry is productive. It makes outcomes. Likewise, when a narrative violates a cultural symmetry, when an action we file under typical is executed by someone we file under atypical, we are forced to update the conservation laws of our story. New variables become measurable. Latent biases become visible. And visibility is a form of energy transfer. What was background becomes foreground, capable of doing work on the mind. Pull back to cosmic scales, and context is not decoration, it's lens, bias, and sometimes deception. Observational astronomy spends half its time correcting for the fact that we see from one vantage. Our galaxy's dust reddens starlight, tricking us about distances if we don't calibrate. Brighter galaxies are overrepresented in surveys, a selection effect called Malmquist bias. So, if you naively average, the universe looks more luminous than it is. The cosmic microwave background contains a dipole because our entire solar system is moving. We subtract that motion to uncover the primordial fluctuations beneath. Even gravity itself becomes a context amplifier. A massive galaxy cluster bends light from a smaller, more distant galaxy into arcs, magnifying and distorting it. Without the lens, the faint background would be invisible. With the lens, tiny differences become data. Every inference we make about the universe, its age, its composition, its rate of expansion, comes with a book of biases and corrections. We don't despair over that. We develop better instruments, multiple wavelengths, orthogonal measurements. The irony is that the thing we call objective reality emerges only after we account for how profoundly relational our view is. And the same is true for social perception. A performance choice that feels like a stylistic flourish can function like a gravitational lens. It magnifies features of the script we otherwise filter out, and it exposes distortions we didn't know we were living with. This raises a final tension. If outcomes depend on context, does that mean nothing is intrinsic? In physics, we resolve that by chasing invariance, the quantities that survive a change of frame. Energy is frame-dependent, but the laws that tell you how energy transforms are invariant. Photons bend around mass, but general relativity gives the same curvature to any observer who does the math. In culture, we can do something similar. We can run controlled variations, swap the actor, hold the text, alter the setting, hold the arc, change the audience, hold the staging. If a particular interpretation only erupts under one swap, then we've learned something about that axis of symmetry. If it persists across changes, we've found an invariant of the story. This is not an indulgence, it's an experiment. Science advances by breaking symmetries on purpose to see what resists. When researchers toggle polarizers, they're not being theatrical. They're mapping stress lines in the material. When directors toggle expectations, they're mapping stress lines in us. So why does the felt sharpness change? Because intensity is not a property of the act alone. It is produced at the interface between event and expectation. Change the expectation by changing the performer, and you've rotated the measurement basis of the audience. You've altered which features decohere into facts, which asymmetries drive the plot, and which biases need subtraction. That move doesn't fake reality. It lets us see more of it. We learn which parts of our response are universal and which are artifacts of our frame. That's how you get closer to the invariant beneath the noise, whether you're measuring a supernova's light curve or a character's capacity for harm. Like if this was interesting, and hit the subscribe for more.